Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Is that how you're going to start it?
If I'm asking how you would like to start
An
it.
interviewer generally says, hello, welcome to whatever this is, and then...
Well, I was going to let you introduce yourself and then say, well, welcome. So would you like me to do it the professional way?
However you feel is necessary to do it, Max.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Daw. Welcome to Now Starring. I feel like I'm being way too loud.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to talk about Scholastic. So our first question is, what is Scholastic Bowl? Like, the basics.
So Scholastic Bowl is a competitive, team-based activity or sport, depending on who you talk to. It is it is a competition between all the different schools within our same region. So in the same way that you would face off against other schools with basketball or football or anything else, you face off against them in Scholastic Bowl as well. So what it is you have two teams. Each of them has 5 people up at once, and it's basically trivia. Think of like a game show. You get random trivia questions from random categories, and your goal is to answer more of them than the opposite team. You get points for everyone that you were able to answer, and so at the end, the team with the most points ends up winning. So it's competitive, but it's more academic and trivia based than athletic.
So like official Trivial Pursuit.
Yes, sort of.
Okay. And then, what does a typical practice or meet look like for Scholastic Bowl?
So basically our practices look a lot like our meets. You'll have people show up. We will have 2 teams. If we were at an actual meet, it would be one school and another school. In our practices, it's just a skirmish between 2 different groups. They'll divide themselves up. They each sit on the opposite sides. They have buzzers like you would on a game show. I will start off by reading a question, or whoever the moderator is will read a question. Whenever a person knows the answer or thinks they know the answer, they hit their buzzer, they are called upon, and then they have to answer. It might be right or it might be wrong. Sometimes the moderator will say, you need to be a little bit more specific with your answer. So if the answer is let's say it's the anarchy, which is one of the English Civil Wars, and the person says, an English Civil War. The moderator might say, can you be more specific about which one? And then you can follow that up like that. If you get that right, you get a score of 10 points added to your team, and then you go to what's known as a bonus round. So in a bonus round, they ask you a series of 3 questions that all relate to each other. Your team is given the first option to answer each question, and then the other team gets a rebuttal if you get any of them incorrectly. So it's sort of like you get the first chance at an extra 30 points. So each round is worth 40 total, 1 for the toss-up, and then 10 each for the 3 bonus questions.
So similar to like Family Feud.
Yes.
Okay.
Sort of like that. That would be a good comparison.
And then how could someone join like MR's team if they're interested?
Anyone is welcome to. Unfortunately, the season is just about over. We really only have a regional game, so I'm not taking anyone new this year. But if anyone in the future would like to join, I generally, the first couple weeks of school, make an advertisement about it. We have a meeting where I see any prospective students. But then even up until when the season starts in January, anyone is welcome to join if they want. I have a varsity and a JV team at this point, so varsity will compete against other varsity, against other juniors and seniors, and then JV will be more for, sophomores and freshmen. It's not impossible for you to move up. It just gives you more time because the questions are generally balanced towards you are a senior in high school. That's more like, in terms of academics and what you've learned in class, that's probably more of what you would have heard of before. So it can be intimidating for a freshman. That's why in this last year I've decided to split it up into the last couple of years I've split it up into 2 teams. So it's like that. Anyone is welcome to join. At the moment, I have not had enough that I've had to have tryouts. If I ever have to do that in the future, that will be a thing that I will have to handle, but I would have to have like 30 people join before that has to happen. So.
Yeah. You answered one of our other questions because I was going to ask if there was much of a difference between the JV and varsity teams.
So, yeah, they generally get the same questions at matches, but it's just you're competing against other freshmen and sophomores, so you don't have to have the intimidation factor of seniors who, like, because sometimes there will be math questions about something like calculus. And so if you're a freshman, getting a calculus question is going to be somewhat intimidating.
Yeah,
Whereas
terrifying.
if you're competing against another freshman, it's like they also probably won't know the answer. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then you said the season's nearly over. So when is the actual like end of?
So we have regionals on May 10th. There is theoretically sectionals in state after that. It's unlikely that we will go that far. As much as I like our team and as decent as we are, we're generally not that good because when we go to regionals, we compete against much, much larger teams like teams from Springfield and Macomb and things like that that have just more members to draw upon. That's an unfortunate breakdown that comes to. It's not out of the realms of possibility, but yes, generally after May 10th, the season will be over.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. How did you decide you wanted to start coaching scholastic ball?
I did it a whole lot in high school. I really enjoyed it both in junior high and in high school. Our coach when I was in high school was not the best at it. She didn't necessarily, we didn't have practice very often. She was just kind of there. Nothing against her, but that's just the way that it was. And when I got hired here, the position was open, and I was like, you know what? I like Scholastic Bowl, and I feel like I could do a better job, and I could make it a little bit better. And I know we haven't had one and they hadn't had one for a couple of years because of COVID. So I was like, this would be an excellent opportunity to get back at it and try to make it a new team.
You're like, I could do better than that.
Well, I did have the top athlete in the region a couple of years ago.
Nice. Who is that?
Liam Baldwin.
Oh, okay. How has this season gone so far for our team?
It started out really nicely. We were undefeated for the first 2 or 3 meets, and then unfortunately things took another turn, and we sort of went downhill after that. So we started off really great. We ended up in sort of a middling role because then we took a bunch of losses, but it's all right. I'm not upset about it. We're certainly not the worst team out there.
Yeah. It happens. You just got to practice more, right?
And we just have to practice, and it's very, very random. It's just what questions happen to come up. Sometimes you will have one that has a whole bunch of history questions, and if you don't have a history person, then you're not going to score very many points that time. If you have a whole bunch of math questions, then it's just the luck of the draw, honestly, sometimes.
So, it's actually random. There's not, it's this category, and then they ask a bunch of questions, and then after we're moving on to this category?
No. So every question is its own category. So at the start of a question, they will say, your next toss-up is in history, or your next toss-up is in literature, or your next toss-up is in mathematics, or something like that.
What do you think are the team's strengths and weaknesses?
At the moment, we are pretty good at history questions right now. We have one person who's very, very good at history. We are fairly decent when it comes to music. We have someone who's very good at music and musicals and drama and things like that. And we are fairly good at mathematics, calculation mathematics.
On the dot math?
Yes. So they'll even say pencil and paper ready, and you still only have 10 seconds. You have to follow along to what they're saying and the word problem, write it all down, and then solve for the problem. Yeah.
That's impressive.
It is. It was a category that I did not particularly like when I did it, but I like when we have students who are able to do it.
So is each student assigned a topic, or everybody just happens to know parts of everything?
Yeah, it's more like everyone has their own speciality, and because it's very difficult for me to be like, okay, next, you're on the team. You are only going to look up 18th century poetry, and that's all you're going to do. It's hard to force that issue, but people generally come in with their own skill sets. So if someone likes art, or if someone likes biology, or if someone likes math, or if someone likes literature or something like that, they're going to naturally gravitate to one thing. And so then it's one of my jobs as the coach to think about, okay, how are we looking at this meet? How many questions have come up in each category? Do we think we're going to have a lot of history questions next round? We make sure that we put the history person in. I try to balance things out in terms of making sure that people see playtime, but also that we have people who are likely to score on certain categories in at once, and not have like 4 math people in all at once when we could split it up and have a difference.
Make sure the team's well-rounded and balanced.
Exactly.
What's your favorite topic or category?
Well, obviously biology,
Yeah.
but beyond that, I also I quite like history. I also studied history in college as well as biology, so I'm also quite good at history, and and it gives me a moment to like, because in practice, what I will often do is when we get to the end of a question, if people don't know it, then I will also often have like a little mini lecture about like this is the topic. So like, if it's about Alexander the Great and the conquest of Tyre, like if we get the question wrong, then I'll have a little mini explanation. I'll pull up something on the smartboard and we'll go over it and we'll say, okay, so this is what was going on at the time. This is where the city is. This is how the city of Tyre was like, well, we're an island, so you can't do anything about it. And Alexander the Great goes, well, your island isn't an island anymore because I'm Alexander the Great. Deal with it. As an example, I'll give a little mini lecture like that, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about a lot of different things that I find interesting over the years. Yeah.
So, like, when they get one right, everybody gets to move on, but if they get it wrong, you're like, your punishment is more learning.
It's not necessarily a punishment. It's I want you to have additional facts, and maybe if I talk about this, then you guys will remember it the next time it comes up, because there are certain topics that will come up again and again and again. I feel like every single year we have questions about the Alexandre Dumas novel, Three Musketeers, and no one on my team has read it. So I've given them the plot summary like every couple years because we have a question or every so often because we have a question about it like every year.
Okay. I think that's all the actual interview questions we have.
Okay.
So I put together some scholastical questions to ask you.
Of course you did. On the spot.
I don't know how difficult or easy these will be. But I have a list of 6 lightning round questions is what they're classified as, and then another thing that's like TV. I don't really know what that means because I just copied and pasted them from a website,
Sure.
if I'm being honest.
That's fine.
So the first 4 I have, or do you want me to mix them up?
It's up
or
to
just
you.
Go? Okay. So the first 4 we have is literary terms.
Okay.
The first one is a protagonist who lacks conventional heroic qualities.
Protagonist with heroic qualities?
Who lacks conventional heroic qualities.
An anti-hero.
Where's that one?
So those are, I'm sure whatever site you got them from is perfectly fine. Those are a little bit, I just want to give you a little bit more information. Those are a little bit short for scholastical questions. They're usually 4 to 6 sentences long, usually. They start out much harder, and then they get easier the longer you read them. So the idea is they would start out hard. Someone might be able to buzz in early, but the longer you listen to it, the easier it's going to get. So the more competitive it gets towards the end.
Okay. Yeah, the first 6 I have are extremely short.
That's perfectly fine.
But the last 2 are sports. And I know you are not big on sports ball.
Yeah, I'm a big sports ball fan.
So I picked those to see if those would be
Because you don't want me getting every
all.
single one of these right?
So I can use this.
All right.
Second question. I might skip over some.
That's fine.
Extreme pride that may serve as a tragic flaw.
Extreme pride. Not quite sure what they're asking for on that.
Is still literary terms.
No, I understand that. I'm not exactly sure which term that they're going for. I would guess it's hard for me not to just say like pride.
Yeah.
All right, what is it?
Hubris?
Oh, hubris. Yeah, okay, I can see that.
So you got it wrong.
There. Are you happy? You wanted to use your noise?
I got to use the sad trombone. This has I don't know, before the questions it says teams not ending in S. Name these pro sports teams whose nicknames do not end in S.
Okay.
Massachusetts MLB team that plays in Fenway Park.
Be the Red Sox.
Yeah. I figured that one would be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a hard one. Well, a long one, because I'm not sure how easy or hard these
Gotcha.
are.
It's fine. Use one.
Oh, this one. Yeah. We'll do two. Okay. One of my group members wants to do one, but I want to do another because I love this question. Okay. We'll do my team members question first. Saturnism refers to poisoning by what heavy metal, whose Latin name is the origin of an English word reflecting its former use in water pipes?
Lead. Plutonium is the Latin term for it. And that's why they are called plumbers.
You got the extra part of the question, too. What? All right, I'll give you that. Completely unprompted, too. All right. Okay. This one, I love this one. What character, you probably know this, what character who was named for Nintendo's lawyer is a native of Planet Popstar who often fights King Dedede and is able to inhale his enemies?
Kirby.
I just like Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
He's a silly little guy.
He's a silly little guy. All the powers of a god, but can't talk.
And he's just silly about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is all we have
Okay.
for today.
Well, thank you for having me on next.
Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.